The opinions of this podcast are my own and not necessarily the opinions of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate, any realtor associations, persons, or entities. If your property is currently listed with a real estate broker, please note that it is not our intention to solicit the offerings of other real estate brokers. Hey everybody, welcome back to Hunting Home. Today's guest is Jacey Kallsen, and she's actually with Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo and Aquarium. And Jacey, I think it's very important to say aquarium too, right? Like you don't just say zoo.
Yes, that's right. We actually have the largest aquarium within a zoo per gallon, so definitely important note.
So don't miss that detail.
Yeah, don't miss the and aquarium.
Well, I had Jacey on today because I met Jacey years ago when she was working with Tandem Works, and I still work with Tandem Works, and at that time I was going through some marketing stuff, and Jacey helped me out with that. And then I've gotten to know Jacey a little bit better through the Council Plus Leadership Program, and I'm kind of on a kick right now, Jacey. I've had two other guests through leadership have been on the last two episodes, so I'm kind of going down the line talking to people that were involved in that. And I think that your role at the zoo and what the zoo means to our community, like Omaha and Council Bluffs, even to our states, is super important. And so I just thought it'd be awesome to have you on and talk about what you do at the zoo and kind of introduce yourself. So tell us who you are, your story a little bit, and how you got to the Henry Doorly Zoo and Aquarium.
Yeah. So I graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with my marketing degree in December 2021. And after that, so I worked at Tandem Works all through college. And then I was there full time for a bit. That's when we would have met. And then my mom subscribed to the newsletters for the zoo, which is kind of full circle because I do those now. But she subscribed to the newsletters, and she saw that they had a marketing and events specialist position open. And since I was a kid, I was obsessed with the zoo. I really thought that I was going to be a zookeeper. But then I got older and I realized that I'm horrible at science. And so those two things have to mix at some point. And so didn't work out there, but always loved the zoo, always loved animals, conservation, that whole space. So she saw that job. She said, hey, you should consider applying for this. So I did. I didn't think that I would get it. Honestly, I was just like, well, I don't want to miss an opportunity if it's there. And then I got it. And I was in that role for about a year and a half before I eventually transitioned to communications manager. So that's where I am now.
Okay, so what were you doing in your first role? Like what was, your day-to-day activity?
Yeah, so it was really heavy on the event planning. So our public events, more notable ones are Ghouls and Glow, Late Nights at the Zoo, Zoo Lightful, which I was out of events by the time we held that one. But yeah, more of the after hours, public events, ticketed events, just planning and executing those.
Okay. And now in your communications role, what are you doing on a daily basis with the zoo?
That's a great question. Every day is so different. So obviously communications umbrella, media, PR. I do email marketing, influencer marketing, some sponsorship stuff, internal communications, special projects like filming. Yeah, a lot. I oversee all of our archives. A lot. Every day.
Yeah,
is different.
I think anybody listening to this podcast in our area, if you live in this area, you've been to I just say the zoo because that's what we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You've been there. I talk to people all the time that are you know, like my parents, for example, they went to the zoo in the 90s, when I was a kid. they haven't been there in 15, 20 years. And I'm like, oh, you wouldn't recognize it. It's a completely different place. I mean, even if you don't go for a couple years, the zoo is like always changing. And every time we have two little kids, we have a membership. We have started to go a lot more, which is for sure the way to go, to get the membership and go for like 2 hours at a time, go to one exhibit or two exhibits, and then
Yeah.
take your little kid home. But I mean, it is a massive facility, and like I'm just in awe all the time of all of the moving parts and how that place operates like on a daily basis between, I mean, let alone like the animal side of it, which is crazy, just feeding them. I mean, just all the things that go into that, but just the facilities that are there. I mean, the grounds, it's just like it's hard to even fathom what it takes to operate that place on a daily basis. So, I mean, I'm sure your role is like very complex, but also has to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and big is a good word to describe it. We're over 160 acres, so just the span of the zoo is huge, and also our reach is huge. We have hundreds of thousands of followers on Facebook. We have 100,000 email subscribers. We have a huge employment base. It's a lot, and it's a lot of responsibility, and it's also we're very privileged to be able to make the impact on our community, on the zoo industry, and on conservation that we do.
Yeah. I mean, for locals, I think that it gets taken for granted quite often because most people, I mean, I don't think I've ever been to another zoo. I mean, I remember going to like SeaWorld 25 years ago. But I mean, nothing like the Henry Dorley. So like, can you give people that maybe haven't been there in a while, like, what are some of the big things that are happening at the zoo right now? Like, can you give us kind of an update of what's going on?
Yeah, so we were recently voted the number one zoo in the nation for the second year in a row per USA Today. So that's a huge honor to receive. And then we recently reopened our newly reimagined Hubbard Orangutan Forest. Very cool, huge project spanning construction began September 2022. And what's very awesome about this exhibit is this is kind of the first time that we've really worked to activate all five senses. So we have audio throughout the whole space, and we are also pumping scent throughout the whole building, which is so cool. It has like a rainforesty type of smell. It smells really good. That's one of the first things that people say when they walk in is, "Wow, it smells so good in
That
here."
is crazy. I would have never even thought about that.
Yeah, but really the goal with that is to create an immersive experience. So we want you to feel like you are in Indonesia, in this space, or like you're in whichever habitat the animals would live in their natural environment. So yeah, a lot going on. We of course welcomed 5 elephant calves over the last few years, which has been huge, literally, I guess. Um, yeah, a lot going on. We're always changing. We're always growing, as with any industry. Ours changes rapidly, and we change along with it, which is really cool. It makes it very exciting to be here.
Yeah. So when you were in your more of in your events role, was the area open for wedding venue area?
Yes, so we have a department that does all of our private events, and we have. I'm trying to think how many traditional event spaces we have, but basically almost anywhere in the zoo you can host an event. But then we have our Harper Event Center, our Scott Aquarium Conference Center, some spaces like that, more traditional event spaces for weddings and things like that.
Well, I just bring that up because I went to a wedding. It was the only I've only been to one wedding there, and it was probably it's been over a year, maybe about 2 years ago. It was really cool, really great experience. Um, And then we bought a behind the scenes um, package through a charity event with the seals. And we took our kids and went to it as a really great experience. But through that, we had kind of a detailed tour of some of the zoo, and I just didn't realize that how much thought is put into everything there. Like even the plants that are planted around the zoo, like just things that made me appreciate it more when I went back to visit it, because it's all things I would have looked past. Because when you're there, you're just like marching from exhibit to exhibit, basically, especially when you're with little kids. You're just like, the race is on. But man, I mean, I just couldn't believe how much thought and details put into everything. And people really should, if you're going to go, you should try to get on some type of tour like that and be educated on all the things of the zoo, because it makes the experience so much better. Just like you're talking about with having scent at an exhibit, like there's so much thought. It's just crazy.
Yeah, we have a really extensive horticulture team that takes care of all of our plants. We have a team that we call life support, and basically they care for all of the different water sources around the zoo. We have one of the largest reproductive sciences teams within a zoo, so we have a whole department dedicated to reproductive sciences and everything that goes along with that, kind of under our conservation science umbrella. I mean, we have the largest amphibian conservation area within a zoo as well. So since its inception, we've released over 150,000 amphibians back into their native environments. I mean, that includes amphibians that would otherwise be extinct in the wild, like the Wyoming toad. They're native to the Laramie Basin in Wyoming. And restoring those populations has been something that we've been working on for a long time. And there's actual real conservation work that happens here behind the scenes every day. We've partnered with the Madagascar Biodiversity Partnership to plant over 7 million trees in Madagascar. And we've also identified 24 new species of lemur there that otherwise our science community wouldn't know about. And there's a lot of really interesting, really worldwide impact work that we do here every day. I'm part of the Sunflower Sea Star SAFE, which is through the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. SAFE stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. The sunflower sea stars, they experienced a sea star wasting disease, and it wiped out most of the population along the western seaboard. And from right here in Nebraska, we are kind of co-leading the charge in working to restore those populations of what's a really vital species in that ecosystem. So yeah, really, really important behind the scenes work that happens here that people may or may not know about. That's kind of my job, to make sure people know about it. So something that I'm working on, spreading those messages and getting people inspired and interested to care about animals and about wildlife and wild places and their conservation. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a huge part that people don't realize is the the conservation part of it behind it, outside of like the entertainment side of it. And people probably, I mean, don't even think about that and all that entails. And it's interesting that, I mean, you obviously are very knowledgeable about all that. And were you like, did you feel, I mean, you said you wanted to be a zookeeper at one point, but were you like as knowledgeable, or has the job really like pushed you to be more involved?
Yeah, I would say I didn't even know a fraction of what happens here before I got here, and that's part of what I love about the opportunity that I have as the communications manager, to teach people about what we do here, because it's a lot bigger than just what you experience when you enter our zoo. Which ultimately the goal is, when people come in, we give them a great experience so that when they leave, they bring something with them, whether it's you read a sign in orangutan forest about palm oil, and then you buy a different shampoo the next time you're at the store, or you plant a pollinator garden at your house. But whatever it is that you can do today to make better choices that will impact animals and their habitats and ultimately make the world a better place. That's why we're here. That's what we do, is form those connections between people and animals and inspire them and educate them to be able to help them.
Yeah, that's really cool. So who, you guys are voted number one zoo. Who, like, where else is like, where's two and three at?
Okay, so let me think. Cincinnati was number two. I visited there this spring. They have a wonderful, wonderful facility. It's really cool there. That's something that people may not know about zoos too, is it's really collaborative. So in many industries, it's if you have a different company that's doing the same thing as you, obviously they're your competitor.
Yeah.
But that's really not so much how it is in this industry. It's really collaborative. We learn from each other. We work with each other. We have friendships with different people at different organizations. We support each other, promote each other. Yeah, but Cincinnati was two. I cannot remember who was
Seems
three.
like I always felt like San Diego had a zoo that was always towards the top.
Yes, so
But
San
I could be making
Diego,
that up.
they have, I don't know where they landed on this vote in particular, but they have a great facility out there. They have multiple facilities under the umbrella of the San Diego Wildlife Alliance, which is cool.
So do you have any idea like how many people visit the zoo on an annual basis?
Yeah, so it's kind of anywhere between 1 million to 2 million. It depends on the year. We celebrate our 1 millionth visitor every year, which is coming up actually at the end of July, is kind of when we're expecting that to happen. So, yeah, it's usually 1.5, somewhere in there.
What do you do for that millionth visitor?
Yeah, so this is the first year that I've kind of taken on planning that experience.
I feel like I
So
need to go get in line like every day
yeah,
now.
yeah, it's fun. You get a button and a certificate and a gift basket and some other stuff that I'm not going to tell you about yet. And yeah, it's fun.
That's cool. So what do you think is like the most interesting thing that you've experienced or learned while you've been there?
That's a hard question. I feel like I learned something or experienced something interesting almost every day. But I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I really didn't know the worldwide impact that our zoo had. And so knowing that and being here every day and knowing that I'm able to dedicate my time and talents and resources and life to the conservation of wildlife and wild places and making our world better is just the biggest privilege ever. Um,
Do you work on site at the zoo?
yep. So we are in. If you're driving towards the main entrance, there's a big mirrored building on your left hand side with polar bear statues out front. Our offices are on the top floor
Yeah.
of that building.
Okay. It had to be pretty surreal when you took the first job there. Like that would be weird to me. Like I'm going to work. I'm driving over to Henry
Yeah.
Doorly Zoo.
Yeah, or walking through the zoo before or after hours. That
Yeah.
still sometimes gets me where it's like, wow, it's not lost on me that this, in a lot of ways, that working here is a dream come true. So,
That's
yeah,
really cool. That's good to hear. I mean, that's what it's all about, but sometimes it's hard to attain all that, in a role that you want to do at a place that you want to do it. That
yeah,
means something to you, is fulfilling. So, that's really cool, JC. I appreciate you coming on here today and kind of sharing about the zoo. Like I said, we're membership holders and we plan to spend a lot more time there in the future as our kids get older and we can navigate a little bit easier. And but it's been good getting to know you a little bit better. And if I ever have a question about the zoo, I'm going to reach out.
Yeah, do it. If I have a question about real estate, I'll ask you.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thanks, JP.
Yeah, thank you.